The Shenmue series originated on the Sega Dreamcast in the late 90s with Shenmue 1 and the early thousands with Shen 2. I was around 2 years old at the time, so my experience with the franchise came years later in the re-releases. These HD versions feature higher resolutions and improved texture clarity, but have barely changed an iota gameplay-wise. Shenmue is a series that's aged noticeably, but charmingly, like a nice old, hopefully not racist grandmother. Control-wise, it's clear it's from a past era, playing with sort of tank-like controls, using R to move and aiming yourself with a joystick or D-pad. But content-wise, well, you've likely heard people describe it as ahead of its time. It's hard to really pin a genre on Shenmue, as it's so very much itself. Single-player action-adventure is a generic enough moniker, but it's more like a life simulator featuring martial arts, a sandbox world to play around in, but still with a defined narrative to guide you. Caffeine-free Yakuza. The Shenmue franchise at its core is a martial arts journey about seeking revenge for the death of the protagonist, Ryo's father. You journey across Japan and China looking for answers and battling anyone who stands in your way. However, much more than that, it's one about making new friends, helping people, exploring the world, and living life day to day. Which is to say, being it's late 2020 as I record this, a game about things mostly impossible in the time of COVID lockdowns. So today, I decided to investigate the simple pleasures of Ryo's life in Shenmue, and how well the franchise creates a real feeling world to explore during quarantine. Even 20 plus years after its initial release, plus a mere single year after its most recent entry. Described simply, the Shenmue series are games about information. Looking for answers for your father's murder and learning where to go in your quest. In the beginning, gathering info was easy enough. Ryo is well known in his hometown and the nearby city of Dobuita, and the townsfolk are sympathetic to his cause. You walk around and ask people if they've seen anything suspicious, or simply talk about their lives and current events.
Years ago, I was Chinese.
He's such a poser. Thinks riding a hog makes him look cool, but it don't.
Don't you know that blackmail is way uncool?
I don't know why you're in such a hurry, but never stray from yourself.
Yes, sir.
However, as your questions get more specific, so are the people you must find to get the answers from. Once the questions go from, do you know where sailors hang out, to when is the Chinese cartel going to meet with the local gang, you'll need to meet and befriend people outside of your comfort zone. To this end, Ryo must take up a job at the harbor, moving crates around with forklifts, in order to get in good with the dock workers. If you know nothing else about Shenmue, you probably know about the forklifts. All of this is to say, while the dialogue is stilted and strange at times, in the English dub at any rate, Shenmue's understanding of what information people are willing to share is relatively realistic. You can't just interrogate every person you meet, and oftentimes you have to be patient and simply live life while waiting for the answers to come to you. Shenmue asks the player to explore new areas, but more so to see areas you've already familiarized yourself with in different lights. Your small town is full of small wonders, and by the end of Shenmue 1, you'll know more about it than you'd assume possible from the outset. The amount of detail in the world of Yokosuka is, frankly, entirely unnecessary. Every little inch of the map has something to look at, and as the hours and days pass in the progressive day-night cycle, new events will come and go with the seasons. Your home stands next to a small dojo where you can train in the martial arts of the Hazuki style, crafted by your late father. In Yamanos, there's a small shrine with a local stray cat who you can bring cans of tuna or various treats to. The local children help you take care of the cat, and will call on you to search for her when she goes missing. A little further down the road in Sakuragaoka, a candy shop with some gachapon machines accent rows of houses, where locals will ask you for directions or get into street fights. Further along in Dobuita, an arcade houses plenty of classic Sega games to occupy your time. The locals will tell you about various restaurants to try and shops to visit, and taking a bus to the harbor will let you work as well as explore the warehouses and meet the local thugs.
Hey, boy!
The point here being the simple acts of exploring your hometown, meeting and getting to know new people, working a job, going to the arcade, helping out friends with their worries. It's all so simple and calming. The kinds of little things in life that most games skip over for fear of boring the player. Of course, this is all contained within a narrative about the power and disciplines of martial arts, but the two sides of Shenmue are by no means disconnected. Training with your friends at the dojo, learning near-forgotten techniques from old masters, or hearing legends about the mirrors which drive the plot forward. A mystical mirror called the Phoenix Mirror is the crux of the plot. You can take it to pawn shops to have it appraised, or show it to elders who will tell you of its strange energy it gives off. And it seems everyone, including Lan Di, your father's murderer, are keen to get their hands on the mirror. Shenmue does have combat despite appearances, and it's satisfying at that. Virtua Fighter style gameplay with specific button inputs for combos, along with dodging, blocking, grabs, and throws. And there are optional moves which you can learn from the locals or purchase from shops to better defend yourself against everyone, from punks to Lan Di's subordinates, capped off with a massive 70-man brawl across the new Yokosuka harbor. However, Lan Di himself has the Dragon Mirror, the Phoenix Mirror's sibling, and only when brought together does their potential reveal itself, meaning Ryo can't just stick around in his hometown if he wants to understand why his father was killed over these mirrors. So by the end of the first game, all the time spent in Yokosuka will have felt far too short as you set sail to Hong Kong in search of Lan Di in Shenmue 2. Another fun thing not possible at the moment, traveling to other countries and experiencing their culture firsthand. Of course, Ryo's goal is to track down his father's killer first and foremost, but after getting all his money stolen, he doesn't really have a choice but to take the scenic route, working all kinds of part-time jobs to scrounge together cash, and maybe risking it all gambling to afford housing. When I say that Shenmue is an excellent game to experience lost everyday life during quarantine, I guess I'm including the more depressing aspects as well. While worrying about hunger isn't something to be dealt with until Shenmue 3, the cost of living is still a daily expense, limiting the amount of time Ryo can speak to locals in search of Lan Di. Hey, here's a fun thing. When did Ryo learn Chinese? In Shenmue 1, a considerable amount of the plot is based around him needing to get Chinese scrolls translated, yet he can talk with everyone he meets in Shenmue 2, but at one point he's woken up by a cool lesbian Joy in Chinese specifically, untranslated in the localization, and he doesn't understand what it means. So does everyone he meets throughout Shenmue 2 and 3 speak Japanese? My take on it is actually that Ryo speaks Chinese really badly, so everyone he talks to is sort of guessing at what he's trying to say, which explains responses like,
My grandmother told me that I shouldn't talk to strangers too much. She said if I did, she wouldn't sell me tea leaves. Shoot, and she's my own grandmother.
I see.
By the way, if this top-tier voice acting isn't doing it for you, personally I'm all about it, the modern releases of the games have dual audio with subtitles. Anyways, throughout the course of Shenmue 2, Ryo, and as a result the player, is taught patience through a daily routine of moving stacks of books carefully out of a library to dry out, working various odd jobs, and tracking down information on those who know more about your father's death, as well as meeting your future boyfriend. Hong Kong is filled to the brim with shops, gambling stands, fighting arenas, arm wrestling contests. There's so much to do, and you're not really expected to do it all. As a result, the fine level of detail present in Shenmue 1, being able to open and explore every single drawer and every inch of space, has been lost a bit. That's not exactly a bad thing though. The best way to put it is the first Shenmue game takes place in your hometown. You grew up there and can explore every nook and cranny as a result. There's so much detail because most of the area isn't new to Ryo, and when there's nothing new to do, you end up exploring the things you've already done further. But after visiting the more bustling areas of Hong Kong, the Kowloon district is Ryo's next stop on his tour of China, a more concrete neighborhood made up of several connected skyscrapers. These towers bring back some of that unnecessary detail from Shenmue 1, with swaths of totally empty but strangely detailed rooms to explore for literally no reason. Ryo keeps charging forward to hunt down Lan Di, getting himself captured, beaten, and nearly killed several times over. By this point, all his new friends are getting worried about him. Kowloon focuses more on the combative side of martial arts, and Ryo beats the final boss by the skin of his his teeth, saving the only person left in town who knows the true nature of the mirrors. After the game's final boss, my first time through Shenmue 2, I expected the credits to roll right as Ryo leaves for Guilin. However, instead, I was greeted with a somber several hours, real time, of walking and talking through wooded mountains with Shenhua, a main character introduced quite late into the second game. Sticking with the Shenmue series theme of learning patience, it takes days of hiking to reach the village where the Phoenix Mirror was carved, all the while talking with your new friend about life in Bailu Village and what has brought you all the way out here. So when I record a longer series like Shenmue, for instance, that I've played before, I tend to have like a podcast or something that I'm listening to in the background. However, for this walk, I turned off distractions to simply take in the vibes, enjoy the conversation. Shenhua is a fascinating character, being a girl who grew up in a remote village, learning about the outside world for the first time from a dumb, lovable sack of bricks like Ryo.
That tree.
The Shenmue tree.
Yeah, it's a really big tree.
Yes.
You can skip or speed up segments of this game's long conclusion here, but in doing so, you'd also miss the entire point of the finale. Ryo has charged headfirst into this quest for revenge, without taking time to consider how it affects people around him. Lan Di himself apparently only, spoiler alert for Shenmue 2 I guess, killed Ryo's father for revenge himself. So if Ryo keeps charging headfirst into things without thinking, he'll end up just like Lan Di. The long walk and talk with Shenhua serves as a cooling period for Ryo to slow down. You can quite literally stop and smell the flowers as you go, and optional side path is full of blooming flowers simply for spectacle. Shenmue 1 is a game based around familiarity, exploring an area you lived your whole life in with new perspective. Shenmue 2, however, is about exploring new, unfamiliar grounds. You go from Wanzhai to Kowloon to Guilin, not settling down in any one place, but instead making friends who follow you. Despite the variety and scale of the world, you end up exploring fewer and more specific areas. This ends up making Shenmue 1 by comparison have more familiar terrain. You walk and rewalk the streets of Dobuita and the harbor while living your life. Shenmue 2, on the other hand, has plenty of optional areas you may never see or will only ever go to once. So where does Shenmue 3, released 18 years later, fit into all of this? No spoilers for the main plot of the third game here, by the way, as it is another long title and it was released relatively recently. Well, after the long walk and talk setting up how small and backwoods the village of Bailu is, Shenmue 3's return still needed an impactful beginning. As a result, the village is full of arcade games, gambling stands, capsule machines, and far more structure than you'd expect after being told how tiny the place is. This doesn't necessarily detract from the atmosphere so much as confuse it slightly. However, in Bailu Village is a whole new world of martial arts training to explore, a proper dojo with opponents to spar with and battle against, training dummies to practice the basics. Shenmue 3's exploration of kung fu training has Ryo practicing from the ground up to learn the discipline. Shenmue 1 is the basics, Shenmue 2 is the patience, and Shenmue 3 is the form. I've seen reviews of Shenmue 3, and indeed the entire series, describe it as boring, mundane, groundbreaking, sure, but taking too long to get to actual combat and action. The way I see it is the battles aren't the point of the series, they're merely a factor. Shenmue 2 in particular takes a long time to demonstrate how martial arts should never be used to attack someone and gain something, but instead as a means to an end, for self-defense or the rescuing of others, self-betterment, teaching history, what have you. Patience is the name of the game. And after an 18-year-long wait and a Kickstarter to get Shenmue 3 released, the game wished to put a lot of focus on recreating the experience and memories of the previous entries. Thus, it has a little bit of everything, from gacha to forklifts, QTEs, and forced lost seas. The game seriously plays exactly like the other two, but smoothed out, and most of the time, catering to nostalgia like that isn't the best way to bring a series back. However, Shenmue's continuous narrative, quite literally picking up exactly where it left off, makes this blast from the past a worthwhile investment for fans. The games can be played as a whole unit, back to front. The simple kindness of Shenmue's world is better than ever in Shenmue 3. Side quests have become a more formalized affair, making helping out the locals an easier ask. Combat has been simplified, with directional additives to moves being foregone. I'm not particularly a fan of this as someone who's comfortable with fighting games, but in combination with the new difficulty settings, series, I'm content. Giving more players a chance to partake is never a bad thing. Of course, the game could not fully escape the modern gaming zeitgeist, featuring paid DLC and a timed limited release for all platforms. But purely from a game content and story perspective, Shenmue 3 is more of the same in a comforting way. This is coming from someone who didn't play the games as a kid. This isn't blind nostalgia talking. This is a new love for an old series. Flawed? Sure. Slow and monotonous? Absolutely. Relaxing? Infinitely so. I've spent countless hours chopping wood and picking herbs and the fishing. Okay, sidebar here. There's a side quest in Shenmue 3 to catch 4 specific fish across the village, and the reward is some kind of special jacket you can equip on Drio. Dress up in games is a guilty pleasure of mine, so of course my first time through I spent forever trying to catch these stupid fish. Only when I get all 4 do I come back to the shop to be told that the contest has already ended because I took too long, too many in-game days. I'm still sour about it now. And while I'm complaining, the new energy system can go fuck itself. I don't mind needing to eat to maintain strength or heal, but having your HP constantly draining from moving or simply standing around is exhausting in every sense. If we ever get a Shenmue 4 and I have to look at one more piece of black garlic, I'm gonna... Eventually, after enough time exploring Bailu Village, Ryo learns that Shenhua's father has been taken to Niaowu. Bringing Shenhua along for the ride, the two of you head off for the big city. Here is where the majority of the game's content opens up, and while you're still expected to spend time searching for Yuan and Lan Di, Niaowu has so many part-time jobs, minigames, the dojo, and side quests that it's hard to not get distracted. And the game knows that, even encourages it. Without the comfort of your house from Shenmue 1 or friends' places to crash at like in Shenmue 2, you'll have to maintain a steady stream of income to afford food and board. And in order to keep leveling up your martial arts, you'll need to acquire new moves, either by simply buying them, learning them from townsfolk, or trading in prizes. The Chobuchan hunt, looking for little bird figurines in specific shops, adds back the every nook and cranny style exploration from Shenmue 1 in an optional manner. It really gives you a chance to appreciate the amount of detail put into Niaowu and indeed all of Shenmue 3. By the end of the game, again, no spoilers, I'd explored everywhere and everything in the city time and time again, and I'm sure missed plenty along the way. It's a perfect balance between the fidelity of Shen 1 and the scope of Shen 2. And with the structure of the 3 games out of the way, let's conclude with the series as a complete unit. Well, incomplete, as the story has an apparent ways to go according to its creator, Yu Suzuki. Speaking of, his history with video games is quite interesting in that he actively doesn't play many games. He's not even a huge fan of gaming as a whole. What he does love is telling a story in a unique way, which is perhaps the best way to describe Shenmue as a whole. Despite being at the forefront of innovation, especially effectively inventing quick-time events in games, Shenmue isn't quite like any other video game. It'd be easier to compare it to an interactive story, a playable arc of anime, filler included, a story which is best told through means of play. Watching Ryo drive forklifts around for days on end would get dull quick, but playing it out is strangely soothing. It's repetitive, calming. I'm content to let the story come to me while I relax and meet the townsfolk. My overarching point here is if you're looking for a game series to lose yourself in, especially during quarantine, why not Shenmue? A series as long as you need it to be if you're willing to take the scenic route. It's dated in a lot of ways, but not so much that picking up the HD collection and Shenmue 3 if you're hooked isn't a worthwhile proposal. Filled with small wonders to discover across massive areas, from Yokosuka to Hong Kong, Bailu to Niaowu, Ryo's adventure showcases the beauty of simplicity. Some call it boring, some people don't want to spend hours a day moving crates with forklifts, and those people are cowards. Lots of us have more time than ever while staying at home during COVID-19, and a game series that takes its time flowing like a river is perfect for the occasion. It teaches you patience and lets you live out the fantasies of everyday life currently made impossible. It's not an exciting quest, it's a relaxing one, therapeutic even. Shenmue is a series about the journey, never the destination. Thanks for watching, and take it easy.